Have you ever felt like you see the world differently? Like there's a unique lens through which you perceive reality? If so, this video is for you. In the next few moments, we're going to explore what it means to have an awakened Sula journey of depth, truth, and profound transformation. So if this resonates with you, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button, like this video, and let us know in the comments what comes to mind as you listen. There are moments in life when you just feel different. You can't quite explain it, and you've never been able to. It's not a choice, it simply is. While others may overlook the subtle details of the world, you feel them intensely. For you, silence can speak louder than noise. You sense when someone is in pain, even if they're hiding it behind a smile. You feel their sorrow as if it were your own, even when they say nothing at all. You didn't ask to be this way, you've just always been this way. Carl Jung once said that special souls are not born in comfort, but are forged in the silent fire of introspection. Perhaps this explains why, even as a child, you may have felt like you didn't belong. While others ran toward the noise, you turned inward, exploring the universe within while the world focused on what was outside. This journey, however, came with a cost, a deep, often aching loneliness. Not because you were physically alone, but because you felt that no one else truly understood the way you experienced life. But this sensitivity, this emotional depth, is not a weakness. It's not something to hide or fix. Instead, it's a signal, a sign that you hold something extraordinary within you. A soul that perceives more, that knows without being told, that picks up on invisible frequencies and feels what others refuse to acknowledge. You carry an ancient truth inside you, a quiet fire that burns in your chest. If you've ever felt like you're too much for the world, too emotional, too intense, too reflective, it's not because something is wrong with you. It's because the world hasn't yet learned how to hold the depth of a soul like yours. But hear this, you are not broken or lost. You are awake in a world that is still fast asleep. And when a soul awakens, everything around it begins to change. Having a special soul means that everything touches you more deeply, not because you are fragile, but because your sensitivity allows you to see beyond the surface. You don't just notice people's words. You feel their energy, their sadness, their longing. You carry burdens in silence that others are too afraid to name. The world has likely told you to toughen up or stop feeling so deeply. But what they don't understand is that you can't live any other way, and more importantly, you shouldn't. This intensity is a blessing in disguise. Carl Jung also taught that to discover your light, you must face your shadow. And you, with all your depth and complexity, have faced internal storms that others can't even begin to comprehend. You have sat in silence, questioning your purpose, feeling an emptiness that clings to your chest. You've asked, what's the point of all this? And still you are here, searching, asking, and feeling. That voice inside you is your soul. Not everyone can hear theirs. Many drown it out with noise and distractions. But you have learned to sit in your silence even when it hurts. You've learned that wounds don't need to be denied. They need to be honored, and that pain doesn't take you away from who you are. It returns you to it. Your soul is special because it chose to feel and to awaken. And while this path can be lonely and painful, it is also sacred. In a world obsessed with escaping inward truths, you chose to go deeper. While others searched for answers in the external world, you closed your eyes and asked the questions that only the soul can answer. Who am I? What am I here to give? What does it truly mean to live authentically? Asking these questions already sets you apart. It doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're finding your way back to your truth. A special soul is not defined by what it accomplishes, but by what it transforms. Every time you chose forgiveness over resentment, every time you allowed yourself to cry, every time you opened your heart despite the risk of getting hurt, you were embodying your true power. Your soul doesn't need applause or validation. It vibrates on a different frequency. And while that frequency can sometimes feel isolating, it is exactly what this world needs. You were not born to fit in. You were born to awaken, to transform, and to remind others of the parts of themselves they have forgotten. Jung also said, "A life not lived is a disease from which one can die." Your soul carries a mission that often lives beyond words and logic. This mission isn't always grand or loud. Sometimes it's as quiet as choosing love in a moment of anger, as simple as telling the truth when it's easier to stay silent, or as beautiful as seeing someone for who they truly are when no one else does. When you have a different kind of soul, you grow tired of the noise and shallowness of trying to fit into molds that were never meant for you. You're not drawn to empty gestures or superficial approval. There is something inside you that has always searched for something more authentic and profound. This search hasn't been easy, because the more awake you become, the more aware you are of how asleep the world really is. You begin to see contradictions, pain dressed up as success, fear disguised as ambition, and disconnection passed off as normality. But you can't pretend anymore. You've tried to adapt and fit in, but there was always a persistent voice whispering, "This is not your place." That feeling was never a sign of weakness. It was your intuition. It was your soul speaking clearly, asking you to return to what you truly are. Your true transformation began in that space of discomfort and not belonging. Special souls are not forged in easy moments. They are forged in the chaos and pain that forces them to look inward. When you began that inward journey, something shifted. You stopped looking for external validation and started becoming your own refuge and guide. In that place you discovered that what once hurt you began to open you. What once separated you began to connect you. A soul that has learned to be with itself is no longer afraid of its own light. It no longer hurts to be different. You begin to honor it, understanding that you were born to expand, not to blend in. You stop needing to be understood by everyone and instead begin to attract those who can truly see you not with their eyes, but with their soul. Real connection isn't based on appearances. It's based on frequency. And when you elevate yours, everything around you begins to shift. One of the greatest gifts of a special soul is that it awakens others simply by existing. You don't need to do big, loud things to change the world. Sometimes just by how you listen or how you are, you begin to light up places that once only knew shadow. This is because you chose not to stay in your wound. You chose to go through it and turn it into understanding, compassion, and a strength that stands tall. You are no longer trying to prove anything or impose yourself because you know who you are. Your soul is special because it longs to live fully and truthfully with purpose, not just to survive. That's why anything that isn't real empty conversations, forced connections, externally imposed goals feels unbearably heavy now. It's not because you think you're better, but because you've learned to honor your energy. You begin to attract what vibrates with your essence and let go of what you once tried so hard to hold on to. You realize nothing real is forced, and nothing meant for you can be lost. At this point in your journey, you no longer seek to belong. You seek truth, presence, and peace. You reconcile with your past, seeing it as the sacred ground that prepared you to awaken. You forgive what once hurt by understanding it deeply and looking at it through the eyes of compassion. Your soul is truly, profoundly special because it chose to awaken in a world that often prefers to remain asleep. Your solitude was never a punishment. It was a preparation, a sacred space where you could finally hear your own voice. Now you understand that. Your sensitivity was never an overreaction. It was a gift. Your intensity wasn't a burden. It was a compass guiding you. Your deep love isn't a flaw. It's precisely the kind of love this world desperately needs. So don't change. Don't dim your light. The world already has too many copies, but your soul is one of a kind. The awakening of the soul doesn't happen in a sudden flash of enlightenment. It's a quiet, intimate process. The broken and dormant pieces of you slowly begin to find each other again. In that moment, you realize you can no longer live the same way. You can't engage in shallow conversations or stay in jobs that dull your spirit. Your soul becomes selective out of a genuine need to protect its energy. You realize you are not here to be drained, but to be expressed and to flourish unapologetically. Often, the most special souls are the ones who have endured the greatest trials. Some truths only reveal themselves in the dark, and some understandings are born only when the world you once knew collapses. It's in that moment when there's nothing left to hold on to that you discover you were what you were looking for all along. Everything you longed for was already within you, waiting to be seen. You begin to see life through new eyes. What once felt like chaos now feels like purposeful movement. And what once felt like loss now feels like liberation. You learn to trust the process, even if you don't fully understand it. There's a quiet wisdom within you that starts to guide your steps. The modern world will ask you to be logical and predictable, but your soul doesn't move in straight lines. It breathes in cycles and dances in spirals. When you stop resisting its nature, everything becomes clearer. Not easier, but more real. You realize that true fulfillment comes from being radically true to what your inner self whispers to you in silence. This whisper, though invisible to others, transforms everything: the way you walk, the way you choose, the way you love. Your special soul didn't come here to be understood by everyone. It came to remind you that you don't need the world's approval to be wholly yourself. The most powerful transformation isn't what you achieve outwardly, but what unfolds inwardly. Real evolution is measured by how well you learn to be with yourself. How you speak to yourself when no one is listening, how you hold yourself up when no one else is there, and how you stay loyal to your truth even when it means disappointing others. This inner loyalty is born after countless moments where you betrayed yourself just to be liked. But a special soul can't stay away from itself for too long. Eventually, a moment comes when you can no longer lie to yourself, and everything changes. Realize that many of your goals and achievements were just masks. Many of your relationships were false shelters. And while this initial collapse hurts, a tiny spark ignites within it. It is your soul reminding you who you are, and from that intimate space you begin to rebuild. Not to please or impress, but simply to be fully yourself. As you continue on this path, you no longer live with the urgency of being understood. You live with the peace of having understood yourself. You become more intentional about who you share your energy with and learn to set boundaries out of self-love. You discover that solitude is a sacred space where your soul gains strength and your intuition sharpens. You no longer panic about emptiness, tolerate crumbs disguised as love, or seek external validation to feel worthy. From this new way of inhabiting yourself, you begin to build a different kind of life. Your decisions are no longer driven by external pressure, but by a quiet inner compass. You feel what aligns with you, and you don't need logical reasons for it. This might make you misunderstood by many, but it also makes you free. Free from conditioning, free from others' expectations, and free to live from a place that is honest and real. In this state, you realize that even chaos has its beauty, and even loss brings hidden gifts. You begin to let go of the desperate need to have all the answers and to carry burdens that were never truly yours. What emerges is a sense of lightness, not because life weighs less, but because you're no longer trying to hold it all together through fear or the desire to please others. You stop resisting change and stop begging for what doesn't flow. You finally understand that you don't have to fight for what is already yours. By nature, your peace, your truth, and your path. As this shift occurs, you experience time differently. You are no longer in a rush or chasing a version of success that never belonged to you. Instead, you find beauty in simplicity and in the sacred pauses life offers. What you once searched for outside validation, affection, purpose now begins to emerge from within. This connection to yourself deepens, becoming evident in everything you do. Your authenticity becomes your language, and without even trying, your presence has an impact. Your calmness speaks more than any speech could, and your ability to see others without judgment creates a space where they can finally breathe a little easier. This is because you've been through the darkness. You didn't run from it or numb yourself. You stayed long enough to understand it and came back with light. This is one of the most powerful gifts a special soul can offer, the ability to return from the abyss with a message. You can now stand beside others without controlling them. You can understand without needing to be right. You can love without needing to own. Because you learned how to do these things with yourself, you now have something real to give. You are no longer desperate to be seen. You simply walk in alignment with what you feel. And that, in itself, is enough. Your goal is no longer to belong, but to be in harmony with yourself. You've made peace with being different, and instead of hiding it, you now honor it. Because in your difference lies your essence, your truth, and your power. The world doesn't need more masks. It needs awakened souls like yours. So, If this message has reached you and reminded you of something your soul already knew, then I invite you to keep walking this path with us. Subscribe to our channel, join the conversation in the comments below, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Let's continue exploring these sacred spaces where the mind, the soul, and consciousness meet.